Good day and welcome. Welcome to what? Oh, right off the bat. This is going to be a good show, people. Predators Proclivity. Welcome to Oh, my goodness. Welcome to Predators Proclivity. Welcome to Predators Proclivity. Wow. The podcast where we try to pronounce our own name multiple times in a row and see how long the audience sticks around. Yes, the podcast where we look at data from the season for the NHL Nashville Predators. That's Predators Proclivity, and we make comments upon it. Predators Proclivity. I'm your host, Preston Proctor. Hey, thanks for listening. Hey, okay, so happy Canadian Thanksgiving Day yesterday. Turkey and gravy and all that good stuff. Hey. All right. So, good win for the Preds. Good call on a lot of penalties. And, I went out to Twitter this morning to see if there was anything new. And there was so many complaints about that goaltender interference on Saros. And I think the thing that I noted in that play was by, kind of kicking his left foot, Saros wasn't quite in the position to push off and to play his position, and I think that was probably the most critical thing with that, because Saros obviously did not stop that shot. I will agree that we do seem to. It would be nice to have a little bit more of consistency in what's being called, what's not being called, even in the same game by the same refs. But that complaining about that is not new. Definitely not new. Okay, so we favorite radio personality of mine always like to do, when they got a new advertiser, do something early in the show. And so, hey, yeah, whatever. We have an advertiser on the show. The brand is Quantum Energy Square. Quantum Energy Square. That's quantumsquares.com. If you're looking for them on the website. They are formulated energy bars with 100 milligrams of organic caffeine. So yeah, I think that would be the most interesting difference between them and other types of bars, is that they do have caffeine in them. They have 100% organic caffeine. Equivalent to 8 ounces of coffee. So I think the bars were about 1.6 ounces. Nice squares, hence the name. They're not overly dense. I've had some bars. Our household does a lot of endurance sports, and we've eaten a lot of things. The power bars of old, those things were so dense, almost hard to chew. And definitely, if you were in the middle of something, I do a lot of cycling. I race a little bit. I'm involved in the USA Cycling Esports Championships the last couple of years. The first year was 36 hours. I was not in shape. Took me about an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours. Over the course of that amount of time, when you're putting out a lot of effort, you really need to eat something. You need to fuel. I have a variety of gels and bars and stuff, and I would say that gels are nice. But for like a 2-hour effort, probably needs a little something else. And so then that's where these bars come in handy. Also for efforts like that, having a little caffeine can't hurt. It definitely can't hurt. So if you go out to quantumsquares.com, use the promo code PREDSPRO, 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 you'll get 25% off your purchase. Preds Pro on quantumsquares.com. All right, got that out of the way. Predators Proclivity. They just rolls off the tongue. Nothing new for Milwaukee and Atlanta. They both have games. Atlanta's opening day, 4 days. So a rough guess is Saturday. Milwaukee played last Saturday, not playing again until this Saturday, so not a whole lot going on with either of those guys. And as far as the Preds go, doesn't seem like anybody's been hurt, and no new transactions, so everything is pretty easy on that front. Now, for tonight's game, yes, it is tonight. Tonight, not the middle of the afternoon. Caught me way off guard if you didn't notice that yesterday's game was at noon. So today's game is at 6 Central, so 7 Eastern. The game is in Toronto, so if you're going to the game, 7 o'clock would be the start. Not tomorrow, but Thursday is also 6 o'clock Central in Montreal. Off the top of my head, I think they're still Eastern time zone. I think that's right. And then Winnipeg on Saturday, 6 o'clock, and I'm pretty sure that's not Eastern time zone. But anyway, here in the Central Division, in the Central time zone, the next 3 games are all at 6 o'clock, including tonight. Toronto. I've been to the Toronto Stadium. Like the fans up there. Very nice. Those of you that listen know that I used to live in L.A., LA Kings fan. We were there when the Kings won their first Stanley Cup. We were at Game 6, sitting a couple of rows down from the Kings announcers. It was quite the experience. We had to go to Toronto. My wife had to work in Toronto the following year, so we during hockey season. So we took our Kings gear and we went to a Toronto hockey game. The Kings were not playing, but wore our Kings gear, went to the NHL Hall of Fame, got to see the Stanley Cup, all the other cups. Very good experience, and really enjoyed the game in Toronto, enjoyed the fans. They gave us props for representing the Stanley Cup champions. Didn't give us crap about not wearing a jersey for the team or a sweater for the team that was for one of the teams that were playing, which we have gotten crap for in the past in other arenas, not to be mentioned right now anyway. But yeah, Toronto, definitely had a good time in Toronto, enjoyed the game, enjoyed the fans. So definitely like that. But that's it tonight. Not pulling for Toronto, pulling for the Predators. So the Toronto Maple Leafs are 5th. They are tied for 5th in the Atlantic Division. They have 2 whole points. They are 1-2 this season. They've lost their last 2 games to Detroit, and a kind of odd scheduling circumstance. I think I noticed last year teams playing the same team, not internationally. Now, granted, the Preds are going overseas and playing Pittsburgh twice, and that makes sense. But here in the States or in North America, because we have Canadian teams, ergo Canadian Thanksgiving, playing the same team back-to-back, not during the playoffs, does feel a little weird. And so on Saturday, Toronto was in Detroit, and then yesterday, Detroit came to Toronto. So back-to-back games, fortunately not consecutive days, but Toronto lost to Detroit in both of those games. After winning the first game, they beat Montreal in their home opener. So they are 1-2-0, 2 points. They're tied with Tampa Bay and Ottawa, but Toronto gets the nod for 5th. For Toronto, this is the second game of a 5-game homestand. The Rangers come to town on Thursday, and then Seattle on Saturday, and then next Tuesday, New Jersey. Then they go to Buffalo, and Buffalo. Oh, this is consecutive days. Then on next Friday, they play at Buffalo, and then on Saturday, Buffalo comes to Toronto. The game on Friday is later than the game on Saturday. You gotta wonder. But anyway, yeah. So they'll play Buffalo on back-to-back days, and changing the venue from Buffalo to Toronto. It's a schedule. It is a schedule. So as far as the game tonight, Nashville, this is the first of two versus Toronto. And we will meet Toronto again in mid-December in Nashville. Last year, the home team held serve, won both. That was Toronto winning in Toronto 3-2 and Nashville winning in Nashville 5-2. Of course, last year, Toronto was first in the Atlantic Division. They were second in the Eastern Conference. And my production staff, again, did not get enough coffee. That does not make them the first wild card team. That being first in the Atlantic pretty much puts them where they were going to be. But they were second in the East. I think, if I remember right, Washington. So they were first in the Atlantic Division. They won in the first round. They beat Ottawa in 6 games. They won the first 3 games, and Ottawa won 2, and then they won in 6. So they 4-2, 1-6 in the first round. And then they met Florida in the second round, and Florida won that series in 7. Toronto did take the first and second games, and then the 6th. So they had a fairly good team last year. As far as personnel changes go, they did get 6 draft picks. They had 1 pick in each of the 2nd, 3rd, 6th, and 7th rounds. They had 2 in the 5th. None of those players are currently with the team. Not terribly surprising. But I guess the most notable change is Mitch Marner was traded to Vegas. Last year, he led the team in points and assists. And I guess it was one of those sign and trade things. The Toronto signed him to a big contract, then traded him to Vegas. We'll see how that turns out. They traded him to Vegas, and they got forward Nicholas Roy in the trade, straight up trade. I'm guessing had something to do with salary cap issues. Roy definitely not as a productive of player, but not as expensive either. So probably something along those lines. And then, so Marner is the only one that I noted that is missing from the team of any note. I noted of any note. Well, that just rolls off the tongue too, doesn't it? Okay, so and then added to the team is the forward Nicholas Roy, and then forward Matthias Michelli, who they got in a trade with Utah, and then Dakota Joshua, who they got in a trade with Vancouver. And added to the team recently because their primary goaltender is injured. He might be back tonight. He's on the injured reserve with expected on the 14th. Today's the 14th. So we'll see. And so they picked up Caden Primo off waivers from Montreal. I guess instead of bringing up one of their own, they claimed somebody off waivers. And so he is the backup to Stolars, who has played all 3 games so far. And Toronto's in a back-to-back situation. I get to goaltenders later. I'm mentioning Primo. I do not expect Primo to be in goal, regardless of the status of Joseph Woll, who is day-to-day, expected back today, number 60 goaltender Joseph Woll, who got most of the duties. But the Stolars, again, I get to the goaltenders later, but Stolars and Woll were fairly even. Woll got about 5 or 6 more games last year than Stolarz, so it was a lot more equitable number of games for their two goaltenders than you normally see. Also out, but could be back today, is number 18 forward Steven Lorentz, expected back today, day to day. Not expected back today are two people. Number 24, Scott Lawton, expected back on the 16th, and then defenseman Marshall Rifai. I think I got that right. R-I-F-A-I, Rifai. Rifai week to week, not expected back till November. There you go. For your Nashville Predators, the Nashville Predators, we're now second, solidly in a playoff position. Can we just call it now and say, hey, start the playoffs? No, we don't want to do that because then the season would be over really quick. And that wouldn't be much fun. But they are second in the Central Division with 3 points, 2-0-1. Tonight's game is the second game of a 4-game road trip across Canada. They are 1-0-0 on this road trip so far. Tonight's game is the back end of a back-to-back. Ottawa yesterday was the front. Thursday, Montreal, and Saturday in Winnipeg. And as I said, Toronto paid in a back-to-back game with Detroit. They played at 1 o'clock Central yesterday. The Preds played and started an hour earlier. And as far as players go, Nicholas Hague is still week to week, expected back on the 23rd, so no change there. All right. Preds statistics. The Preds are 2-0-1. At home, they're 1-0-1. Away, they're 1-0-0, and don't really have, a body of statistics to say, that. That's interesting. The spreadsheet is not updating when I bring it down on this computer. Bizarre. I got to figure out why. Because looking at this, my spreadsheet to get stats and not seeing any stats kind of ruins the whole deal. But anyway, so we don't have any stats to talk about, except I guess the one stat so far is that every time the Preds have gotten the first goal, they've won the game. And when they didn't, they lost. Now, again, it was an overtime loss, so that's some consolation. But, yeah, there you go. So that's kind of the stat there. So we'll wait until we get a little bit more stats. I kind of like, as I said, this 4-game road trip because it does give the Preds an opportunity to play. Again, it's not a significant number of games, but I'll take 4. I'll take 4 road games, and we can start looking at trends. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the Preds will come back and they play 5 home games. There's a back-to-back, L.A. and Dallas. We get to play another back-to-back. L.A. comes to town on Saturday, and then Dallas comes to town on Sunday. So during that 5-game home stretch, we'll play a back-to-back. And then after that, we should start having some stats that, we can start looking at trends. And we'll have, at that time, we'll have 7 home games, and we'll have 4 road games. And, we can kind of see how things start to make sense out of this season. But until we start getting a significant number of data points, it's not really worth talking too much about. What we can talk about are the matchups. So let's talk about the matchups. Last year, Toronto was 7th in the league in scoring. Now, they did trade away their number 1 guy. who is number one in goals and assists. So don't really expect them to be as effective in goal scoring as they were last year, but you never know. I mean, it's all about chemistry too. Goals against, they were also tough goals against. They were 24th in the league last year in being scored on. That definitely doesn't look like it has stayed with them. Detroit scored 6 in the first game and 3 in the second, so 9-11. So in 3 games, they've had 11 goals scored against them to having scored 10. Contrary with the Preds have scored 8 and have had 5 goals scored against them. So definitely a lot stingier. But hey, that's the Western Conference versus the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference tends to score a lot more points, score a lot more goals. But yeah, last year they were 7th. Primarily, they were 2nd in the league in scoring in the second period, which historically bodes poorly for the Preds, since last year they were 3rd in the league in goals against in the second period. Which means it would be interesting to go back and see when all the goals were scored last year, and I did not do that. But I'm not going to do it on the fly. But that was last year, and this is this year. As far as penalty kill and power play go, Toronto, not surprisingly, was 9th in the league on the power play. So they were one of the better teams in the power play at a whopping 24%, 54 goals on 218 attempts. So they had 4 more goals than the Preds on 10 less opportunities. And the Preds were 18th, so middle of the pack last year. On penalty kill, the Toronto middle of the pack, they kind of swap. So penalty kill, Toronto middle of the pack, Preds one of the best. Power play, Preds middle of the pack, Toronto one of the best. Their penalty kill 77.9%, 52 goals on 235 opportunities. So they gave up 7 more goals than the Preds on 8 fewer opportunities. They did score 6 shorthanded goals last year, which is 15th in the league, and they gave up 7 shorthanded goals, which is 10th. So there you go, and that was last year, and not exactly sure how much that one player would have contributed to any of that, probably at least on the power play, if not the penalty kill. But don't have that information, and this is a new season, so who knows how that's going to go. I did take a quick look at the stats. I did not see where Toronto showed up on the penalty kill or the power play in the top. The Preds are in the top for penalty kill again this year. So, some things continue from last season. As far as the goaltender matchup, Toronto, Joseph Woll. Last year he was 27-14-1. Anthony Stolarz was 21-8-3. So looked like Woll got about 12 games over the season more than 10 games over the season more than Stolarz. So that's pretty close. Injured, maybe back tonight. I'm guessing if he does come off, that he will play, since Stolarz has played all 3 so far. And one thing I don't expect would be for Primo to be in goal, and I've been pretty. Well, you're kidding me. All right, so I just decided to take a look out here at Puckpedia. They have Primo in starting, and he's been an AHL goaltender. I don't believe he has a start in the NHL, so I'm really not believing that one. But last year Woll was in goal both times against Nashville. So he was 1-1. The first game, which was the win in Toronto for Toronto, was the last game of a 3-game winning streak for them. And then the loss came, kind of interesting. In the last 16 games of the year, Toronto was on fire. They lost 3 games, and one of them was to the Preds. Really surprising, but they were 13-3 in their last 16 games with this 5-2 loss somewhere near the beginning of it. But yeah, pretty good end of the season for Toronto. I got Wall is injured, probably not going to play. Primo, so I expect Stolarz. I'd be really surprised to see Primo. I'd be really surprised. I mean, they just picked him up off the wire. Not. I mean, he may barely have a Preds jersey. I'm sure he doesn't have a Preds jersey. We might have a Preds jersey. He could be a fan. October 6th, so that was 8 days ago. So they probably do have a uniform for him. He's been the backup, so you figure he's probably got to have a Toronto. Why didn't they bring up somebody from their AHL team? Is kind of surprised, because if it like the Preds had 7 goaltenders in training camp, and they sent 5 of them down to Milwaukee, and Milwaukee sent 2 of them down to Atlanta. I would assume if say Anunen got hurt or Saros got hurt, that they bring up Murray or Kronos instead of Krona instead of pulling somebody off the waiver wires. But that is what Toronto did. So I would be surprised. I expect Stolarz. I still do. For Nashville, Saros is 2. That's when, again, my production team asleep at the wheel. 2-0-1 this year. He's been the only goaltender starting, and he was in goal both games against Toronto last year. For Nashville, the first game that they played in Toronto, the loss in Toronto was the 5th game of an 8-game losing streak. The interesting thing to note is the 3 previous losses were all OT, so they lost 3 games in overtime in a row, and then not in overtime, the loss to Toronto. The second game, later in the season, again, Toronto wound up being on their winning streak, and this was the Preds had just had a 4-game losing streak and won this game. So, really, I think probably watching that game, you could see what Nashville expected to be when they got Marcia Show and Stamkos, maybe not Skjei, but they've definitely, the signings at the beginning of the year, games like that against one of the best teams in the league, coming up with that 5-2 win, when one of the few times last year where you could probably see the chemistry come together of all the different players. Since this is a back-to-back and Saros has been in goal for the first 3 games, I'm expecting Anunen to get the start. Last year, I mentioned yesterday, Nashville had a back-to-back early in the season, games 7 and 8, and Wedgwood played on the back end. Both games against Toronto last year were the front ends of back-to-backs, and Saros was in goal for both of those, but not the other part of the back-to-back. And, like I said, I was betting on Saros yesterday, which was true. And I would say a Noonan goal against Toronto. And that's one thing where Puckpedia and I agree on. Now, I guess we'll actually see where that works itself out. But Yeah. Oh, interesting here. Looking at Puckpedia, they Brady Martin, they don't have in the lineup. And maybe he wasn't in the lineup last night, but they've got Forsberg and O'Reilly and Kamel on the first line. Svechkov, Stamkos, Evangelista, Bunting, Holla, Marcia Shaw, McCarron, Smith, Yost. So, I have to go back and take a look at yesterday's game. Maybe Brady Martin wasn't part of it. Again, he's kind of, they've got the 10-game limit on number of games that they can play without sending him back to the juniors. So probably, nope, he was not in the lineup yesterday either. He's Canadian, so I don't think he would have any problem. I guess that's the thing with Evangelista. If he had problems with his visa, he could have just picked them up when they came up to Ottawa, and he could have played for the Preds in the Canadian games. All right, moving on. So that's the goaltenders. Players to watch. Mitch Marner, not with the team anymore. He also, on top of being first in assists and first in points, I guess he wasn't first in goals, but first in assists, first in points. He was third in time on ice. So he was the forward that you would see on the ice the most. So again, that's another spot in the lineup that they're missing by having traded him away. What they're not missing is the person that scored the most goals last year is number 88, William Nylander. He scored 45 goals last year. Second was John Tavares, number 91. Third, number 34, Austin Matthews, 33. All three of those scoring more goals than Philip Forsberg, who was the number one goal scorer for the Preds. But yeah, Nylander was second in assists, second in points, second in shots. The most shots were taken by Austin Matthews, and then Nylander and Tavares. So Matthews, Nylander, and Tavares would be the three guys to watch out for. Tavares and Nylander looks like they are on the same line, the second line. Tavares, Nylander, where's Matthews? Matthews centers the first line. And then the person you'll see most on the ice, Jake McCabe. Jake McCabe, 21-30. So all that's fine and nice. Nylander, Tavares, Matthews. The thing that's interesting about their lineup this year is actually kind of like how Ottawa had a guy who he'd scored 4 goals and everybody else scored 1. Similarly with Toronto, Jarnkrok, I'm probably not saying that wrong, Jarnkrok. He's first on the team in goal scoring with 3. He's the only person with more than 1 goal, and his shooting percentage is 60%. He's taken 5 shots, 3 goals, and my quick math from earlier has left me. But I think what the Toronto has 5, 10, has they scored 10 goals, and he's got 3 of them. So number 19, want to kind of keep an eye on him. I know Pinto yesterday. Always when I heard his name come up, I was paying attention, and I think kind of we got maybe dodged a bullet or whatever, but yeah, that didn't. Nothing untoward happened. So, again, number 19, Kalle Jarnkrok. Probably butchering that. On top of Nylander, Tavares, and Matthews. So 88, 91, 39. And as far as the Preds go, we don't have any outliers like these other teams. The major scoring is happening by the players. Marchessault got 2 goals yesterday. So, anybody with a 9 in their number or divisible by 9 is the thing to watch out for. Yes, do quick math. Do it early. There's only 20 players and only 18 of them are skating. So, come on. It's easy. It's not that hard. So that Forsberg, Stamkos, Marchessault, O'Reilly, those are the guys, the forwards to watch for. Yossi, the forward with the most time on the ice. And, although you would think Skay would be the more dangerous of the defensemen, but I don't think so far we've seen that. So that's your players to watch. Momentum, Toronto, Nashville. Hey, same point in the season for both of them, have played 3 games. Toronto's in a 2-game losing streak, both to Detroit. So I don't know that I would really call that. It's a losing streak, yeah. Lost 2 games to the same team, which for them has to be not very exciting, but could just be that Detroit is better than them at this point in time of the season, so they're just going to lose to them. So I wouldn't necessarily take that as hey, they're on this big losing streak. They don't know what they're doing. What they don't know how to do yet is beat Detroit. So they've still scored 10 goals, which is more than the Preds have, but they've given up 11. Which is also more than the Preds have. Not sure what we'll see tonight. But back-to-back situation for both games. So at least for both teams. So at least it's even on that standpoint. Both teams. I'd give the edge to Nashville because they're. The players that they've got are I think they're a little bit more because they got a couple of new players in there, but I think making up for Marner not being on the team is something that Toronto's going to have to figure out. Again, they've scored a lot of goals and they've given up goals, but they've been on the wrong side of the goal scoring in 2 of the games, and then potentially they're just have not quite figured out how to replace Marner yet in their lineup. And I think that will come over time. Probably, a good time to be facing Toronto, not for Montreal, who lost 5-2, but for everybody else. So it should be a good game tonight. Go Preds, and we'll see how this goes. Again. QuantumSquares.com, Preds Pro, or 25% off your order. Hey, thanks for listening. I'm Preston Proctor, and you've been listening to Predators Proclivity.